Hi, everyone. Welcome to Save the Date, your dating survival guide from Coffee Meets Bagel. I'm Dawoon, your host and CMB's Chief Dating Officer. Each episode, I invite a dating expert to explore what it takes to go on great dates and ultimately find a great relationship. Today, I'm joined by author and dating coach Evan Marc Katz, aka dating coach for smart, strong, successful woman. I love that. Evan has been featured on hundreds of media outlets, including The Today Show, The New York Times, and CNN, and the list goes on. Since 2015, Evan's blog has over 30 million readers. His Love You podcast has over 1 million downloads, and 12,000 women from 40 countries have graduated from Love You, his 6 months video course that helps women understand men and find love. Thank you for joining, Evan.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really glad to be here.
Yeah. So I know you're dubbed as dating coach for smart, strong, successful woman. I'm curious, do you not coach dating men at all then? And how did you come to focus on this segment of singles?
I'm probably the first dating coach. It's not, I'm not saying that with any particular measure of pride. I was a failed screenwriter in Hollywood, in the late 90s. And I got a job answering phones at an online dating company called JDate. Just, getting yelled at by strangers. It was a really cushy gig. And so after about a year of doing that, I realized, oh my God, I got to write a book about this because I learned so much from being on the phone with people. So I wrote a book in 2003 called I Can't Believe I'm Buying This Book, A Common Sense Guide to Successful Internet Dating. And it was when online dating was going mainstream for the first time, where it stopped being embarrassing and just became the thing that people did. The New York Times did a magazine cover story by Jennifer Egan about online dating that just made it legit. And it just happened to coincide with when my book came out and I started writing people's online dating profiles. And so suddenly I left film school and focused all my energies on writing people's online dating profiles. My website's called eCyrano, right? You get the Cyrano reference. So basically, online dating profile writing led to online dating coaching. Oh my God, this profile is working so well. What do I do now? And we'd go on, a dating site and help them flirt and help people read between the lines in people's profiles. And so it just became one thing that led to another.
Yeah.
And so at a certain point, 3-4 years into being this dating coach, which again was something no one had ever done before, I realized 80% of the people who were turning to me were the same. I didn't solicit my clients. My clients happened to be smart, strong, successful women who had everything but the guy, right? There was just an abundance of them complaining that it was really difficult out there. And so 2010, I cut men off of my list. The first 5 years of my business, I did coach men, but eventually I cut men off of my list and focused on the women who needed and wanted my help the most. So the shortest version is men need more help, women ask for more help.
Wow, that is so fascinating. Well, there are a lot of both male and female listeners out there. So hopefully we can actually speak to both.
I could absolutely speak to men. They just generally don't ask, but I'm glad to help. It's actually quite easy to help men because so many men are not good at the art of dating or online dating or understanding women that a little bit goes a very long way for a man who's interested in bettering himself.
Yeah, this is really interesting. Personally, maybe because I'm like a personal growth junkie, like when there's a topic that is important to me and I want to get better at, I'm all about seeking help, all about seeking experts. And I don't necessarily see, and we're kind of generalizing here, but men doing that less. And I'm wondering, there is something about dating that stops men from kind of like the topic of dating because from early on men are socialized to be like, oh, we should know how to do this, like we should be leading and all that stuff. So then that acts as a barrier to them actually seeking help.
I think it's a whole larger cultural thing. I mean, I'm not going to speak about the biology of it, but it's a larger cultural thing. It's a joke for decades. Men won't stop in the car to ask for directions. I mean, the self-help section of bookstores, when there used to be bookstores, it was 90% for women. The
Mm.
self-help books for men are about how to make money, right?
Mm.
Right. The only mainstream self-help book for men in this genre was like The Game, and it was how to pick up chicks. I mean, this is what I'm saying is, so there really isn't a deep, rich history, and we could debate on whether it's, you know, supply or demand. You know, if I created this thing for men, would they want it?
Right.
Or are guys really just, I don't want to learn to understand women. I want to learn how to get laid fast. I want to be with a pretty girl. Like, maybe they don't have a greater interest. So instead of trying to offer or foist a service upon someone that they're not really asking for, you know, I focused on the people who needed my help finding high quality men, which is, again, not to suggest that there aren't men who are open to it, but it's a smaller percentage of them. Right. And men don't talk as much, right? They're not as in general likely to turn to their friends for, you know, dating advice the way women. Everyone's a dating expert. Just ask all your friends. Here's what he texted. What do you guys think? I mean, everybody weighs in on this. I think guys keep it a little closer to the vest. Yeah.
Well, you know, I hope that you know, eventually the social pressures, social expectations, the way we're raised, you know, changes. Just, you know, it's not certain way just because we're biologically labeled as men and women, so that eventually we'll get to a place where there isn't like any like distinct differences like this phenomenons. But for today, I hope all the male listeners out there find it inspiring, and this tips help just as helpful for your dating life as much as it is for our female listeners. Okay. So I was mentioning to you, Evan, that the way I actually found out about you is through Lori Gottlieb's book, Marry Him, Settling for Mr. Goodenough. And, you know, in her book, she has several chapters she labels Monday Night with Evan, and she details the conversations that she's having with you as a dating coach, her dating coach, and then the advice that you're giving, which I thought was really, really on point. So I like, when I first read the book, I was like, wow, I gotta have Evan on my show. As you know, in the book, Lori talks about the challenges that she's having is looking for the perfect person and not giving anyone else that kind of even falls like a little bit short of that a chance, which of course offers challenges for her dating life. Is that a common challenge that you see among your clients? And I'm curious what other most common challenges you observe among your clients.
I mean, you just stepped in a big pile. I mean, there's I have this, you know, 1-year class that I teach on this subject. So like, what are the 2 top tips for women who, you know, who have everything but the guy? The fact is, it's a lot. Lori Gottlieb, for those who are uninitiated, she's an old friend of mine. I've known her for 25 years. We wrote scripts together. She got me my first book agent, and she is Stanford. She's Yale. She's selling her childhood diaries. She's contributing to NPR. She's a superstar. And because she's a superstar, she was expecting a man who was also a superstar, not necessarily recognizing that she's already in the 1% of 1%. Right? She needed the guy who was better than her. And so she held out for that guy through her late 20s, early 30s, mid 30s, right? And to be gauche, we're going to use numbers because it makes it easy. She wanted a guy who was a 10. She wasn't going to settle for an 8. And because she didn't, she ended up not being able to find a guy, got a sperm donor, had a kid, and looked around at age 43 with her 3-year-old son in the park and said, this wasn't the dream I intended. I mean, I'm obviously, no mom's, you know, disappointed that she got her kid, but this wasn't the plan. The plan was to have a family. What did I do wrong? How did I get here? What's my cautionary tale for other women? And so she wrote this article for the Atlantic Monthly that went viral, and she got destroyed on the internet. How dare you tell women that they should compromise on anything? You're a discredit to feminism. And she's like, but I wanted to have a family and find a man, and I must have done something wrong here. Maybe I should have, again, settled in quotes, made some different compromises in my 30s instead of been left holding the bag. And so she got a book deal out of this article. And then she came to me because she didn't know what write in the book. She didn't have a book in mind. She had a 5-page article. So I said, here, we worked together in the past. I said, she still thought of me as a screenwriter. So I said, here, no, I'm a legit dating coach. I'll help you as you write this book. Here's some other people you should talk to. Mm-hmm. And so it became this story and this memoir, and she interviewed a whole bunch of people that she found, and I recommended as well, about her journey and about the blind spots of being the woman who has everything, and what you should compromise on and what you shouldn't compromise on. And that conversation continues today. Even though she wrote that book 10 years ago, it's just as resonant right now. And so in a nutshell, the not so secret of my Love You course is that people compromise on the wrong qualities and don't realize it until it's too late. Mm. People won't compromise on the things that they see on an app: height, weight, education, income, right? These are pedigree things. These are external things. So then they'll find the guy who's tall, dark, handsome, rich, funny, successful, and he turns out to be a selfish jerk off. Mm. But I'm not going to settle. Evan, don't ask me to settle. Okay, just keep dating those guys and then wonder why nothing ever works out. The qualities that we can't compromise on: character, kindness, consistency, communication, commitment. If you're missing any one of those 5 things, you're never going to have a happy marriage. And it doesn't matter if he's a Top Chef, supermodel, Rhodes Scholar. If he can't communicate with you, if he doesn't want to commit, if he's wildly inconsistent, if he has anger issues, you're never going to be happy. So we need to pay attention to how someone treats you rather than who we are on paper. Except apps, no disrespect, don't reveal that. They can't reveal that. So what do? We just look at a bunch of pretty faces, swipe right, and take our chances, not really paying attention to how someone shows up and how we're treated, but rather to their external resume compared to other people.
What are the 5 things that you just said is like a must, non-negotiable?
I know.
Must have?
Everybody write it down. And by the way, this is not advice. I give this advice to women, but this is for men too. I could probably give more male-specific advice, but character, kindness, consistency, communication, commitment. You're missing anyone, you won't have happiness. And that's what happens is we then try to reverse engineer, maybe try to shoehorn a relationship. Is we have so much passion, we have so much in common. I mean, look, I'm Asian, he's Asian. I like EDM, he likes EDM. I mean, aren't we a match made in heaven? No. He never wants to get married. You do. Right there. We've got a problem. So just paying attention to these things. Are we on the same trajectory? How easy, I love the word easy. How easy is this ride? Because if it's this, we break up, we make up, we fight. There's silent treatments. I never know when he's going to call or text. What is the point of a relationship if it's so much drama? Yeah. And people cling to those relationships. We get used to those relationships. We normalize those relationships. And everybody's had, I hope, a moment where a relationship was just smooth and easy. You should never accept anything less than that. That's what your life should look like.
Yeah.
You can't just say, well, we had 3 good months, so let's fight for the next 40 years.
Right. And I agree with you. This like the character, kindness, those 5 things that you mentioned, like definitely not just for women, right? I mean, I think it's just what we should be looking for in a partner. And one of the core function of love and, why we seek love really is to kind of like the sense of belonging and connection and feeling seen and understood, right? That is the fundamental goal of love. And, beyond that, we also want to be challenged and have fun and all that stuff too. But if that sense of like safety isn't there, then it just can't work. And, what resonates with me about those 5 things those are the things that are really necessary to create that sense of connection and understanding and being seen. And so, of course, we cannot compromise on that. And, I think the word settle is kind of loaded, right? That settle just implies something negative, right?
Lori, by the way, not to want to spend too much time on a 10-year-old book, Lori did not come up with that title. her publishers came up with that title and insisted she use it for the controversy, and she was miserable. Her life was, she was so unhappy. We went to her book signing, went out with her after her Barnes and Noble signing, and she was crying because she was getting so much hell on the internet. And she
Yeah.
her latest book, if you read that too, is a wonderful book. Maybe you should
Yeah.
talk to someone.
Yeah.
She's really, really talented. And
Oh, yeah,
I
for sure.
think we need to just frame it for all of the folks listening. Compromising and settling entail the same thing. Right? They both involve trade-offs. Compromise is a trade-off you're happy with. Settling is a trade-off you're not happy with.
Right.
So compromising, good. Settling, bad. You have to feel good about it, right? So everybody, if you talk to any happily married couple, they can tell you what they compromised on. There's not a single person out there who didn't make some compromises, some relatively serious compromises, but the good far outweighs the bad. And I wanted to piggyback on something that you said that was really resonant for me, Dawoon. You talked about the feeling of safety. So in month 5 of my Love You course, it's about relationships. We talk about what men want and what women want. And remember, there's an overlap. There's a Venn diagram. It's not men X, women Y, right? Women, and I say this on my podcast all the time, want to feel safe, heard, and understood. It's almost identical to what you said.
Okay.
And men don't recognize that. They don't understand how very important it is for her to feel safe, heard, and understood. He thinks she just wants a guy who is cute and smart and funny and rich. He doesn't pay attention to safe, heard, and understood. And women don't always pay attention to it either, because they choose the guys who are cute and smart and funny and rich and go without feeling safe, heard, and understood. But it's their core need. Men want to feel accepted, appreciated, and admired. Right? But do they choose women who do that? No. They'll choose young and hot, sometimes smart, but they don't always find someone who makes them feel accepted, appreciated, and admired. So we often go against our own self-interest and choose partners who don't deliver on those feelings, because ultimately this is all about feelings. But we don't judge, we don't do that. We swipe and we look at their external characteristics, and we go on blind dates and we hook up, and we keep our fingers crossed that maybe we're going to get some of those needs met. Right? And we're doing it all wrong. We're doing it in reverse. We really got to pay attention not to who someone is, but how someone makes you feel and how someone treats you. And this is, again, gender neutral statement.
Yeah, that's interesting that you've identified something that, like, again, just generally speaking, what woman is looking for in a relationship, long-term relationship, versus what men are. The feeling of like safety and sense and heard, and that is based on, I've kind of learned that from my own personal experience as well, but from there's been a lot of studies around the what makes up love and what is the function of love. And I think one of the more really well-known studies is like Bowlby's attachment theory, right? And like the how that sense of safety that we were created when we were a baby with our parental relationship, that's kind of what we are trying to recreate with the when we're in an adult relationship as well. And so to me, that's something that like apply universally regardless of your gender. And so this is my first time hearing that men are looking for, I don't know what you just said, admiration, respect, and whatnot.
Accept, appreciate, admire. I've read a ton in my capacity as a dating and relationship expert over 17 years, right? My observation is my observation that has been echoed and found a lot of validity. It's one of the nice things about doing this work is you provide a service, and then the world catches up and does the research that validates the thing that you're already seeing.
Okay.
Right? So go around, really, I would encourage, if you have the means, to ask guys, have they ever had a girlfriend who fully accepted them as they were without trying to change them? It'd be a resounding no. And that's part of the reason that it's hard to settle down, because a guy could find a person that he loves, but if that person he loves, her default is to spend more of her time telling him what's wrong with him than what's right with him. This is supposed to be his favorite person in the world, right? The person who loves him the most. And all she could say is, why are you wearing that ratty old shirt? we're going to visit my mom, right? Or can't you get a better job? I mean, I feel like I'm carrying more of the burden here. Or, you know, it happens all the time. So it's not that the criticism, here's the key. It's not that the criticisms are invalid. Any criticism you might have of your guy might be 100% valid. It's just that he didn't sign up to be told what was wrong with him. That's not what relationships are about. They're about acceptance, right? And it goes both ways. But men are content with less than women.
Well, so I don't know if we can actually make a general statement about women and men like that, but I can kind of see like maybe among the clients that you come, like your female clients that who you come to, who seek your help, that maybe this is like one of the common problems that you see. The fact that they are not satisfied.
I don't think it's specific. I mean, I don't think it's specific to anybody. I think I have this role of translating men to women and women to men, and it's imperfect because we can never say all people do X and all people do Y. That's impossible. But I would just normalize it, right? I think we all have a tendency to want to date the opposite sex version of ourselves, whether we admit that or not. There's some sort of narcissism. So if you're someone who's Jewish, you're looking for someone who's Jewish. If you got a master's degree, you want someone with a master's degree. I mean, it's normal. We don't even see ourselves doing it. And it's so normal.
I mean, yeah, having something in common is very attractive.
But it's not important. That's right. What I'm trying to tell you.
Yeah.
Right. We treat it as if those things are deal breakers. I have a master's degree. He doesn't. How could he possibly understand me? That has nothing to do with whether you're going to be happily married. Two people who are Catholic are not going to be more happily married than two people who are not Catholic. Two people who like skiing are not going to be more happily married than people who don't like skiing. So we spend so much time on the common interests, right? As if that says something about actual compatibility, when actual compatibility is how well do these people get along? We could sort of remove any studies from it. Is the relationship nurturing? Is it fun? Is it easy? Or does it take a lot of work?
Yeah.
And I want relationships for all of my clients and for all of your readers that are easy.
Yeah, I think for those of us, that easy resonates a lot with me because I've been in like 7 or 8 long-term relationships before my current one. And I think it's hard to know what a great, easy relationship could feel like unless we've actually experienced it. Yes?
Keep going. I want to jump in, but I want to hear you.
And so like before I was, one of the things that you mentioned is inconsistency. That's a red flag that we have to look out for. And I guess the reverse way, consistency is one of the 5 things that you said, like is really important for us to make sure that we have. And, but before you experience consistency, I was thinking inconsistency is the norm, right? Like it's supposed to be kind of this way because I just don't know what it's like any other way.
Right.
And so you become like, well, isn't this normal kind of thing?
We're going to talk up now, right? We're going to talk social science. Right? It's called the normalization of deviance. Right? Something's broken and we assume, well, that's just the way things are. So you go back to your attachment theory, right? If your parents got divorced, men leave, right? Relationships are unstable. If your parents fought, well, we're used to that. So we've normalized something that it may be normal because it's common, but it's not healthy.
Yeah.
Right? And then we recreate that in adult relationships. Well, it's normal if my guy slams the door and leaves for 3 days without telling me where he's going, because that's the way I witnessed it growing up. And so we try to recreate and repair those relationships. And it's like someone who's never tried like a good glass of wine who can't tell the difference between good and bad wine. Right? Of course, you don't know. A relationship that's healthy might seem boring because there's no drama. He does exactly what he says. And so if we value excitement, oh my God, I don't know what he's going to text me. He texted me. I'm so happy. He hasn't texted me for an hour. I'm going to kill myself. That emotional roller coaster is not normal. It's not sustainable. It's not healthy. So there's this interesting conundrum where women really want men to be consistent. And then when a guy acts really consistent, she's like, who is this needy stalker? This is literally what you asked for. You want the guy who calls you the next day, I had fun, when can I see you again? So if we value the dopamine hit of the uncertainty, the slot machine approach to dating, right? The guessing game, I don't know what's going on. Your dating pool will consist of men who participate in that. So what I would say, and I would say this, I give advice to women, but I would say this to men, 90% of people are not going to be right for you right off the bat. You don't have to judge them. You don't have to be angry at them. There's a lot of nice people out there who have been raised in such a way, haven't developed a certain amount of life skills, social skills, self-awareness, that they can't necessarily be a great partner. So I would implore everybody who's listening, don't worry about the 90%. They will exist, right? The difference between the people who are good at dating and the people who are not good at dating is the people who are good at dating, date those people for a month, realize this is a dead end, and cut them loose. Instead of dating that person for 2 years and wondering why they don't develop into the person you want them to be based on their potential.
Yeah, that's a great advice. Going back to this, some of the common, we just talked about some of the common traps that we fall into, whether that is like being okay with inconsistency, or whether that is continuing to be in a relationship with somebody that is clearly not a good fit. Going back to kind of how we grow up and, like how men and women, I personally think we're a lot more similar than we are different. But one of the reasons why we tend to have such a different dating experience is because of the social expectation and education that's put on us when we're labeled as a child biologically as men and women. There's just the experience of how we grow up is just so different. And we end up believing in the world, like believing certain things about ourselves that actually lends itself to different dating and relationship experience that sometimes I think really gets in the way. And so I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about those beliefs that are kind of, that you see, commonly get picked up that just doesn't really actually help, isn't really helpful to our dating lives.
Would you mind telling me what you have in mind? Because I'm not sure that I entirely, I mean, maybe we're talking a different language here, but what exactly are you talking about that you see as a problem? And maybe I could validate that experience.
I mean, like, for example, I think earlier you were mentioning that women look for certain things, right? And men look for some other things. I don't generally, that I think that could be true. And I think that is a function of how we grow up, like the expectations that we were put into, like to frame us to be like, okay, as a woman, you should be looking for certain things. So are there beliefs like that that you think really gets in the way of our dating success?
Yeah. And I want to agree with you because I certainly don't want to disagree with you. But I also want to carve out not the either or approach, but the both and approach.
Okay.
So is there a sociological construct that people buy into? Certainly. Is there biology? Is there something like evolutionary biology that explains partially, right? Because there are things known as genetics that impact the way people do things and have for millions of years before we were in this modern society. Yeah. So let's look at the both and approach. I got this book here. It's a big, dumb book. I wouldn't want you to read it because it'll take you 3 months to read it. It took me 3 months to read it. It's called Behave by Robert Sapolsky, and it talks about nature nurture. And what people who don't who have an agenda, they want to say it's all biology or all society. And the fact is, it's almost always both. Almost always both. So I never want to get into a discussion where we're discounting one side of the story at the expense of the other side of the story. In this case, we can say that if men maybe foolishly, you look at studies from the OkCupid blog, the women that they find attractive are all in their early 20s, right? Guy could be 50. He's still finding women in the early 20s most attractive. There's a point on that graph where that flips over. And it's ineffective. It's an ineffective dating strategy if that 50-year-old guy thinks he's going to get the 21-year-old woman. And he worships at the altar of youth and beauty and fertility when that's not really what he's about. He's just going with what he's attracted to, which, by the way, may be biological, maybe the fact that men are still attracted to Instagram models, no matter how old they are, means that that's deeper than something that society taught them, but it may not be a good dating strategy. That's something that men may be doing that's ineffective, right? Undervaluing women around their own age, especially when children aren't involved. Because if you're a 52-year-old guy and you're dating online, there's no reason you need to date someone 15 years younger, right? Unless you're trying to have kids. You could find the most attractive woman your age and you're going to do great, but they don't. Guys are always looking younger. So that's something that hopefully answers your question about something people might be doing wrong, somewhere between biologically and sociologically. The flip side of that is, and this is often controversial, is women's desire to be financially taken care of, right? So if we're in a society where, as we were talking about earlier, where women get more college educations than men, more law degrees than men, are largely in most instances up to the same pay scale as men, right? Why do we overvalue how much a man makes so much? Why does a woman think that he needs to take care of her? She's making $150,000. You know what she doesn't need? A guy who makes more. Men who make $150,000 aren't looking for women who make $151,000, but women are still treating themselves as if they're early 20th century damsels in distress who need a man to take care of them, even though the whole point of second wave feminism was you don't need a guy to take care of you. So there's an overemphasis on how much a guy makes and his status, which perpetuates why guys spend so much time working and on their own status. Whether it's biological, because it pre-exists, I need to invest my eggs into a guy who's going to be able to raise my unborn child in such a manner. We could get into that whole thing, and there's a whole science behind that. Or maybe it's just how it looks to other people, right? I don't want to date a blue-collar guy. My family would be disappointed. The adherence to he could do whatever he wants, but he has to make more than I do, that philosophy is also counterproductive. The way men looking for much younger women is counterproductive.
Yeah, I guess it kind of goes back to that point that you were making earlier about really being clear about what is very important to cultivating this successful long-term relationship. If that's what you're looking for, which 90% of CMB daters tell us that's what they're looking for, and being very clear about what's important versus what's not. And seemingly those factors that you just mentioned, I see that a lot also. And I see it on CMB, in the numbers. I think sometimes we just have to recalibrate, like purposely, intentionally, so that we could actually get a better chance at finding the type of partner that we want.
Part of the reason, and again, this is sometimes a hard pill, part of the reason that my clients struggle so much in love is because, again, I'm not going to explain the why, I'm just going to talk about the observation. If you're a Lori Gottlieb and you consider yourself a 95th percentile woman, because you're young and thin and attractive and educated and successful, and list the things that you've accomplished on this earth that you think make you the best person in the world, right? And you convince yourself that the only person you could date is the person who is above you on that scale, whatever above you means, right? Well, then what's our dating pool? Well, it's going to be less than 1%. And go through a dating site. What percentage of men do you find attractive? What percentage of men do you find intelligent? What percentage of men are your religion? What percentage of men are age appropriate? What percentage of men vote the same way you do? So when we stack all those things up, your dating pool, if you insist that he's taller, smarter, richer, funnier, is less than 1%. That's part of why we have a problem. When men date, they're not looking for someone who's taller or smarter or richer or funnier. They're looking for someone who's pretty and nice to him. It opens up the whole world. So I'm not saying it's good or bad or otherwise, but you can see how men have a lot more opportunities because what they're looking for in their partner doesn't have as many things. Lori wrote that in her book, The Husband Store. Remember? It was the first thing in the entire book. Right? It was the idea that it's really, really hard for certain women to let go of these criteria, which may or may not have anything to do with the quality of their relationship. And men are more likely to do that for who knows what reason. I'm not saying either way, but it's why my clients are smart, strong, successful women who have everything but the man, right? They've been looking for the 1% of men who are better, and they haven't given a chance to the guys in the top 10% who may not be better in every single category, but may be the kind of man that she needs to be a good partner and a counterbalance, a complement.
Yeah, I mean, certainly if we have like, 1 through 100 things that has to be a must be there, it's going to be difficult to, I mean, the pool of people that you're going to be able to work with is going to be super small. And so, one of the things that one of the onboarding education that we provide at Coffee Meets Bagel is this math. Like Coffee Meets Bagel's algorithm works hard to curate you the matches that we think is really great fit for you. But if we have 1,000 people to curate from, we can actually give you really good quality people. But if you have 100 filters, and so then now the pool size is 10 people, well,
right,
there isn't much the algorithm can do, right? We have to show you all 10.
And that's before we've even gotten to the important stuff, right? Oh, he's 6'2", he's Presbyterian, he lives 5 miles from me. We haven't figured out character, kindness, consistency, communication, and commitment. We haven't figured out whether he's attracted to you. We haven't figured out whether he wants to have children. So we have this pool that gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And that is not something anybody wants to hear. Nobody, yeah. This is why Lori got ready to cross the goals. And nobody wants to give up on the list that they've had in their head, that they insist that they deserve. But I say this as someone who went online, did the same thing for 10 years, trying to date the female version of me, and ended up getting someone who was completely different from me. Even though we were both on Mensch.com at the same time, right. We never would have seen each other because I wasn't looking for a woman 3 years older. She wasn't looking for a Jewish guy. That just goes to show, not that there's anything wrong with the sites, it's the way we're using them. That's the problem.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, regardless of our gender, like, I mean, I think this math is something that's really important to keep in mind. It's just like, it's the smaller the pool, yeah. So so moving on to the last topic that I wanted to dig into is your Love You course, which sounds fantastic. That 12,000 people from 40 countries have graduated from it. And earlier before we started the show, we were talking about how you structure it, which I thought was in a very particular way. So maybe could you, Evan, give us a preview of how you structure how the course kind of is structured and why you actually chose to structure it the way you did?
Sure. Thank you for asking. So I created Love You in 2015 after doing this job for over 10 years, and I needed a way to consolidate everything that I found myself routinely telling people on the phone, and in a way to make it more scalable and accessible to more people. So there's 280 videos, and the whole first month, before we even worry about dating, commitment, we just work on confidence. Because anytime someone comes to me, it's because she's facing a crisis of confidence. She's been on a dating app and it's sucking her soul. She has gone on a bunch of first dates that went nowhere. She went out with a guy, got really excited about him, slept together, never followed through. Just out of a painful 2.5-year relationship that should have ended a year before that. So people only reach out to me when something's really, really wrong and they're looking for a big change in their life. Right? Definition of insanity. So I spend the entire first month talking about confidence, past baggage, what I call why bother syndrome, meaning what's the point of doing anything if nothing ever works, right? And then taking action, and then confidence. And once we get people's confidence and belief back, because if you don't think dating is going to work, there's no point in dating. So we need to get people to believe. There's a reason that some people get this and other people don't. You need to persevere. So we get people's belief back. Second month is on meeting men. Again, if I coach women, it would be, again, 90% of the advice is gender neutral. Right? It could apply to men. I just don't coach men, but the advice itself is pretty sound, square up the middle advice. So we do a whole unit on flirting. We do a whole unit on meeting men in real life. We do a whole unit on online dating. Right? Now that you're meeting men, and I talk about the idea of having a funnel, right? 7 to 10 conversations going on a dating site at a given time, weeding people out based on their efforts, screening prior to the date instead of going on blind dates with total strangers, scheduling a FaceTime or something before you meet, right? And if someone gives good phone, then hey, maybe they could take you out on a Saturday night, but they put some skin in the game over the course of a week to earn the right to take you out on a date. The more screening we do, the better chance we have of going on good first dates instead of bad blind first dates. Right? Then the whole third month is on dating, right? The courtship process, right? Which between when you meet someone and when that person becomes your boyfriend, there's a lot that can happen. That's usually the scariest part.
Yeah, I think that's the most like the murkiest and hard to navigate actually.
Right.
I
think. And so I've got like, there's again the weekly videos is courtship, being selective, becoming exclusive, boyfriend material, right? It's all the stuff, but where you don't know where you stand and you're trying to figure out if he's worthy of being your boyfriend and having sex. Right? Now, the second half of the course is on relationships. Now that you got a guy, what do you do with that guy to assess whether he's a keeper? So month 4 is on understanding men. And we talk about chemistry and compatibility. We talk about alpha, masculine and feminine energy. We talk about attachment theory, that kind of stuff. Month 5 is on relationships. We talk more about communication, jealousy and cheating, that kind of stuff. And then month 6 is on commitment, how to be a great partner, when to break up with someone. And ultimately week 26 is on wants versus needs. We're really landing in the same place that we started today's conversation, making sure that the most important needs are met and that you're compromising on the right things and not sacrificing that something you can't deal with for the rest of your life. So we really go from at the pit of despair to lead you into a happy, healthy relationship and show you what that relationship actually feels like. So you take this course and we do weekly group coaching calls with a whole bunch of smart, strong, successful women around the world. So people who feel like this is their unique burden and they're really alone in this process, they realize they're not alone. And so if hundreds of people are going through this course simultaneously and they're posting their screenshots of what guys text them in Facebook and they ask me questions on a live Zoom call each week, it's this whole community of people who are committed to aiming for that amazing relationship instead of settling for the relationship where you don't feel heard, where you don't feel happy, where you don't feel connected, but you're afraid to leave. I would rather people be single and looking than to be in a relationship that's not really satisfying.
Right. Wow, that's super comprehensive. And I love that you start with confidence, which I think just that is a foundation to be able to, because dating is so much about putting yourself out there. And when my relationship with myself is not in a great place, it's really difficult to put myself out there,
And there's a conundrum in that too, because the women I'm dealing with are confident women. They know what they have going for them. The place they're not confident is their relationships with men, but they're confident everywhere else. So you ask that person and you're a confident person, she'll often say yes, except for this. This is the one problem I've never been able to solve. I've never been able to find that guy. And I would tell anybody listening, and again, I talk to women, but you can apply this to men as well. You don't have to fundamentally change who you are to find lasting love. You don't. Anybody who's talking about how you have to change is not telling you the truth. What you do have to change is your choice of partner. You don't have to change your personality. You don't have to lose weight. You don't have to cut your hair. You don't have to do anything other than choose better partners who are more compatible with you. Once you choose better partners, everything comes together and your relationships are easy. Keep doing what you've been doing and nothing's going to change.
Right. And I also love that you cover up to the relationship part, which, that's in a way, I think, you could also almost, I heard one of the advice that my friend gave me is like, when you actually enter a relationship, that's when the real work begins, because you're trying to make things work for a long term with this one person who is very different from you, right? We grew up in a different background and whatever else. So that's not easy. And it's a constant fine tuning, right? Because there's going to be moments of connection and disconnection. So I love that you cover that as well.
Yeah, it's the entire second half of the course. Just because you get a boyfriend doesn't mean you're happy. Congratulations, go lead your life.
Yeah.
A lot of people have had boyfriends, and those boyfriends didn't work out and turn
Right.
out to be lasting relationships. So
Right.
relationships shouldn't be work, right? So if you've heard the story, relationships take work. They shouldn't be work. They take effort. Right? It takes effort to show up at work. But you don't want your job to be this soul-sucking, draining enterprise where you're like, oh God, it's another day at work. Right? So it's a garden that needs to be watered constantly.
Right.
Taking care of a dog. It takes effort. But if it starts to feel like work, what's the point of your relationship if you're constantly in couples counseling and constantly fighting and making up and breaking up and not knowing where you stand? This feeling of anxiety that we've normalized. Right? Good relationships don't have it. Good relationships are marked by a lack of anxiety, right? And if you have a relationship where you're constantly on edge, you're probably in the wrong relationship.
Yeah. I mean, and even if there are moments of anxiety or moments of that, you're able to kind of correct that together, probably, versus, that being the definition of what the relationship feels like, then there really is something off with that. And I like the analogy of the gardening that really feels really, that resonates with me. Evan, wow, so that hour came up by really quickly. I have a final question that I ask every Save the Date guest. What is the best dating advice you've ever received?
The best dating advice I've ever received came courtesy of a friend of mine named Scott Greenberg, who was my first married friend in the late 90s. He was the one who figured out when he was 25. Well, I had to screw around for 10 more years. And when I was dating my wife, and I was not sure because I was expecting this lightning bolt, the oh my God, you just know moment. And I didn't get that moment. He said to me, don't evaluate the person, evaluate the relationship. So you can compare all your ex-boyfriends side by side. Well, Jim was taller than John, and Brad was funnier than Jim, and Simon made more money than. You're not evaluating them compared. You're always going to have someone in your past who was younger, cuter, smarter, taller, You're not actually comparing people. How is the relationship? How is the thing you have together?
Yeah.
That's the thing that's worth preserving. Because Lori Gottlieb wrote about my wife in her book, right? And she ripped her a new one. I had to talk to her about that. She said, Evan Marc Katz's wife just seemed average. And so that begs the question, why would a guy marry a woman who's not as impressive as Lori Gottlieb? Well, obviously, there's more to relationships than marrying someone who's the most impressive, right? So we're not evaluating the person, right? Is he a 10 on paper? What does everybody else think of him? Is your relationship a 10? Because if your relationship is a 10, it doesn't get any better and you might want to hold on to it.
Yeah, that's such a great advice. And, I kind of go back to what you said earlier about how does a relationship make you feel, right? And that's a dynamic that is created between the two people, right? And evaluating a person, the reason why I think that it's not as effective is because also like it's what both of you create together, right? Somebody could be an amazing person for somebody else, but not a good partner for you. And so you have to take that into equation, like in the combination of the two of you call relationship, how does that feel to you? That's what really I think is the more important part. So that's a really great advice. Thank you. Oh, and Evan, like if the listeners want to stay in touch with you, where can they find you?
My website is evanmarckatz.com, EvanMarckatz.com. Just relaunched the new website on April 20th, so it should be really more user-friendly. I've got 1,500 blog posts. So you go there, you have any dating question, you do a search. I've answered your question before. So there's tons of free dating advice, blog posts, podcasts, etc. And if you really want to learn more about how to make better relationship choices that were going to benefit you long-term, right? Not just tooling around for free dating advice. If you're serious about it, take the quiz on the site, give me your email address. I'll send you some free stuff and hopefully we can get you into the relationship that you truly deserve. And I want to take a moment, Dawoon, to thank you. You're an amazing interviewer. You're really, really engaging and learned, and I felt like I was talking to a peer who knew as much about this as I did. So that was really a pleasure.
Thank you. What is the website, the URL, your new website?
It's evanmarckatz.com, same as it's been for 17 years. It's just
Okay, great.
a nice new house.
Yeah, well, tons of free resources, guys. So let's go and check it out. It's newly relaunched from April 20th. Thank you so much for being here, Evan, and everyone. Thank you for listening. I'll see you in a few weeks. Thank you, Evan.
Thank you.